I know it's really important. I myself have been they didn't have. Yeah, we need to. This is good in standard one.
And I appreciate your bringing.
Commissioner Wanderer, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so actually, Mr. Gutierrez, he was breaking up a little bit. So for the
Wanderer, do
credit
you have
check,
any
right?
questions?
So only the
Yeah, so
bankruptcy is
actually,
would be
Mr.
considered,
Gutierrez,
or
he
any
was
like kind
breaking
of
up
a
a little bit.
low credit
So
score
for the
Wanderer,
also
credit
do you
check,
have any
right? So
questions?
might be the
only the
issue.
yeah, so
Actually,
would be
Mr.
considered,
Gutierrez,
or
he
any
was
like kind of
breaking
a
up a little bit. Low credit
so
score
for the credit
also
check, right? So
might be the
only the
issue.
yeah, so
Actually,
would be
Mr.
considered,
Gutierrez,
or
he
any
was
like kind of
breaking up a
a
little bit. Low credit
so
score
for the credit
also
check, right? So
might be the issue.
yeah, so
Actually,
would be
Mr.
considered,
Gutierrez,
or
he
any
was
like kind
breaking
of
up a
a
little bit. Low credit score also might be the issue.
yeah, so
Actually,
would be
Mr.
considered, or
Gutierrez,
any
he
like
was
kind of
breaking
a
up a little bit. Low credit score also might be the issue. Yeah, so actually, Mr. Gutierrez, Okay,
he was
thank you.
breaking up a little bit. Low credit score also might be the issue. Yeah, so actually, Mr. Gutierrez,
Okay,
he was
thank you.
breaking up a little bit. Low credit score also might be the issue. Yeah, so
Make sure I was on green.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you, commissioners, for weighing in on that important policy change that we're going to make. Sure I was on green. We'd like to spend a
Okay.
few minutes tonight talking to the commissioners who are present about the Civil Service Commission and our. We'd like to spend a few minutes tonight talking specifically. We have one vacancy on the commission that we've had the entire 18 months I've been here. HR and the board have tried to fill that position. We have three commissioners who have term expiring in 2022. Just wanted to start the discussion, make sure that those of you who have terms expiring in 2022 are aware of that and are thinking of whether you are planning on renewing. I ask you to tell me if you're renewing tonight. But it would be helpful to us for planning purposes to understand in the near future if you're planning on term. The other thing, as an open discussion, there's a couple things I'd like to talk about. I'd like to talk about the date and time, and if this is you, or if there is a better date and time that you would like to start to consider. We have checked county time, and if we cannot find anything that says it has to be the second Wednesday of the month at 5:30, for example. We really wanted to get the feedback from three of you tonight about what we can do to make it more convenient, more accessible, so that we're able to have robust discussions every month as needed. Turn it over to our chair. I know she has some thoughts.
I do. I've been troubled since I started, which hasn't been that long, over the vacancy, and I knew it had been outstanding. And I think that is one of our big barriers because it's so hard to get a quorum. There's always going to be a time when someone is unable to make it, and having to get always the three people has been a real struggle. Do you have any insight as to why it's been so difficult? That position has been a real struggle.
Chair, we really, at this point, do not. The Board of Supervisors has sent out multiple mailings to multiple community groups and has allowed HR to do the same. We've tried to reach out to as many community groups as we possibly can. To be honest, we've jokingly talked about making a flyer and going door to door and passing it out. And we just have, for whatever reason, have not been able to fill that particular vacancy. I know we share the same concern with some of the terms ending that we may be in that. Again, I know we share the same concern with some of the
Okay,
terms ending that we may be in that.
Yeah, okay,
No,
okay, been, I know I've reached out to people, but they always turn out to be county employees and so it doesn't work. And I know you did not ask for this, but I will tell you, I do intend, on, and I know you did not ask for this, but I will tell you, through COVID, I started in March of, and I know you forgot when COVID started, through COVID, I started in,
2020, I think. We're happy to
2020.
hear that you are
COVID's
planning
been
on
with us so
renewing.
long, it seems like. So I do intend to,
We're happy to hear
request a renewal or whatever the process is at the
It
time.
Thank you.
So I do intend to, do the other commissioners want to request a renewal or whatever the process
I
is?
think this time is a good time.
Yeah. I do intend.
Good date
I
and
don't
time.
have a
The
problem with
commissioners
the
want to
meeting at
request a
this.
renewal or whatever the process
I
is.
think this time is a good time.
Good date and
Yeah.
time.
I just wonder, maybe we should somehow write a letter to the.
Good date.
I just wonder, maybe we should somehow write a letter to the. Bill. I just wonder, maybe we should somehow proper letter to the. Not proper. Bill.
Certainly, HR, let us follow up and see if the board can help us send something out again. And I can perhaps ask the clerk of the board to either send us an update for me to share with you at the next meeting, or perhaps she can come and talk about their extensive efforts as well. Send us an update for me to share with you at the next continue that conversation next month and talk about their extensive efforts as well. Commissioner Wander, do you have any thoughts to share? And you don't not have to respond tonight, but you are one that has a term up in 2022.
Yeah, I still haven't decided anything after that, so
But you are one that has a
so
term
I'll
up
I'll
in
see.
2022.
I'll update you. Yeah, I still haven't decided anything after that, so
Is the date and
so
time a
I'll
barrier at
see.
all?
I'll update you. No, date and time is not the barrier. So
Is the date and time a barrier at
I
all?
have few other things are going on, so I just want to see how much time I can give. So I don't want to give any kind of commitments which I cannot deliver. So definitely I will plan accordingly and I will update you guys. Give any kind of commitments which I cannot
All of your
deliver.
time every month. I
So
know you spend a lot of time
definitely I
reading the
will plan
materials, preparing for the
accordingly and I
meeting.
will update you guys. Give any kind of commitments which I
So
cannot
with
deliver.
that in mind, and we'll bring this back for discussion when our missing commissioner is here next month as well. HR would also like to bring next month for discussion some items that perhaps we can work through our civil service rules through your guidance, that if we don't have a quorum, we might be able to have some temporary permission to move forward. So we'll bring that forward next month as well. Might be able to have some temporary Commissioner Paconi permission to move
That would be
forward.
great. I mean, it's like tonight it's burdensome and we know why it's burdensome. It's because work at the county has to keep going and so, we have this huge amount. So yeah, the idea of appealing directly to the Board of Supervisors makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, it is part of their function and their job and to appoint this and I know the supervisor who appointed me was the vacancy showed up in the middle of the term and she was right on it and reached out to me. So anything we can do to help support.
If I learn of anything in the meantime, I'll reach out to the chair, but otherwise we'll bring it back for another item next month.
Okay, thank you.
We appreciate your discussion item on this tonight, Chair, but otherwise we'll bring it back for another item next month.
Okay, thank you.
We appreciate your discussion item on this tonight, Chair, but otherwise we'll bring it back for another item next month.
Okay, so ready to move on to the amendment of class specifications and start working our way through these.
We will do that. Thank you. So we do not have anything for old business tonight, so we'll start the next section, new business. Subsection A is amendment of class specifications. We have 5 of them this evening, so we will start with classification project 21-011, healthcare services, behavioral health services regarding the mental health clinician series. And Amy's going to come up. Healthcare services, behavioral health services regarding the mental health.
Green means go?
Green means
Okay.
Healthcare services,
Commissioner Lofstrom, our Chair Lofstrom and Commissioners. Thank you. You won't have to hear from me on all of these this evening, so that's a good thing because there's a lot of help that's been happening with among the staff here. Amy Brimmer, classification analyst. This first item is a classification study request that was submitted by Behavioral Health in March 2020, asking that the minimum qualifications for mental health clinician 1 be changed to allow more time for incumbents to obtain licensure for this entry-level clinician classification. The current 3-year grace period to achieve the combination of required clinical hours, over 3,000 of them, to take examinations and go through the application process for certification has proven very challenging to meet. Therefore, the department had determined 5 years as a more reasonable time frame. And following this same approach, the amount of time an experienced clinician needs to qualify is also being adjusted. So that's at the experience level. Additional edits are also being made throughout the series to better distinguish between levels and duties. Language regarding driver's license requirements and physical and mental requirements is standardized at each level. SEIU was notified of this agenda item and expressed that they had no objections to the proposed changes. We also have Behavioral Health Services Deputy Director Kara Dunn available remotely if you have questions of the department. Services Deputy Director Kara Dunn available
Are there any
remotely
questions from the
if you have
commissioners?
questions of the department.
I myself have none.
I have none.
Are there any questions from the
None.
commissioners?
This seemed like a reasonable and a good move forward, a reasonable effort,
None.
so
I think it will help that department
seems like
extremely a
reasonable
lot
and a good move
in
forward,
getting
reasonable effort.
None.
getting and
think it will
retaining
help that
employees as well.
extremely
A lot.
Yeah, I will move that we
in
approve and
getting,
adopt the proposed
getting
amendment
and
to
retaining
the
employees
mental
as
health
well.
clinicians.
I will second.
Yeah, I will move that we
Great.
approve and
All
adopt
those in
the
favor
proposed
say aye.
amendment
Aye.
to
Aye.
the mental health clinicians.
Opposed?
I will second.
Great, motion passed. All those in favor
Thank
say
you.
aye.
We're
Aye.
going to move on to the next classification project, 21-010, also for healthcare services, behavioral health services, related to the substance abuse counselor series. Also for healthcare services.
Okay, I'll be speaking on that one again, on
related
this
to the
one
substance
again,
abuse
and for the
counselor
record,
series.
on the agenda outline regarding substance abuse counselor 1, the job code should read RS 1021, not 2021. Your staff report is fine with that, but just wanted to correct that for the record in case it affects any official documentation. So based on a change in requirements from the California Department of Healthcare Services, a classification study request was submitted by Behavioral Health in January 2020 to amend the substance abuse counselor 1 and 2 minimum qualifications so as to be in compliance with the state's amended requirements. The feeder class of the job family, substance abuse worker, was also reviewed for continuity and state compliance. Our substance abuse counselor classifications provide counseling services on behalf of the county's alcohol and other drug program, also known as AOD. Per California Code of Regulations, an individual providing these services must be registered and certified by the state. In November 2018, the California Department of Health and Human Services issued a notice stating that a previous 6-month grace period to become registered for AOD certification was no longer permissible, and that anyone providing counseling services must already be registered or certified. In San Joaquin County's case, these are our substance abuse counselors. Conversely, the county's substance abuse worker classification performs duties in support of counseling but does not provide direct counseling services. Therefore, the characteristics and duties are updated to more clearly articulate the type of involvement in the counseling process and to clearly distinguish that they are not directly providing counseling services. And this is the substance abuse worker. And to clearly distinguish that they are not directly providing counseling. Again, SEIU was notified of this agenda item on August 24th and again on September 28th and did not respond with objections to the proposed changes. Agenda item on August 24th and again. And Kara Dunn can speak on behalf of any questions you may have of the department for this one as well.
Okay, so for this one, I don't have any substantive questions, but I do have some language questions where I think some words were just left out inadvertently, and it should be an easy fix. So I'm looking at the substance abuse worker, it should be an easy fix, the duty statement, I think.
Okay.
The substance abuse worker.
All right.
So under class characteristics, I think I know what word was left out, but the second, no, the third sentence under class characteristics, incumbents learn the components of an observation and related services. Incumbents learn the components of an observation and related services.
Where are you reading?
So I'm reading from the duty statement of the substance abuse worker. It's one of the attachments. So I'm reading from the duty statement of the substance abuse worker. Yeah, so first we have substance abuse counselor, and then substance abuse counselor two, and then the substance abuse worker. First we have substance abuse counselor. I am. Substance abuse counselor two, and then the substance. Yeah, it's important we all get on the same.
You are correct. There is a word missing somewhere, and my apology. I do not have that exact word.
Right, I suspect it's intake, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, and we may have to table this one, but where it says incumbents learn, and then to provide intake was removed, and then it just says the components of and, so that's just my guess, though. Was removed,
I believe
and
it
then
should
it just says the
should
components
learn
of
to
and,
perform
so that's just my
the
guess,
components
though.
of an intake.
Was
I
removed,
believe
and
it
then
should
it just says the
should
components
learn
of
to
and,
perform
so that's
Thank
just
you,
my
Kara.
guess, though.
So that's Deputy Director, Behavioral Health Services, and she probably has the correct draft that we worked on together. So that's Deputy Director, Behavioral Health Services, and she
We can
probably has
orally
the
make
correct
that edit
draft that we
and
worked on
have the
together.
commissioners approve it.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have one other.
Yes. Oh,
Same,
boy. Oh,
same
my goodness.
one,
Have the commissioners
number
approve it.
8.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and this is going to be like,
Yes.
seem like
Oh, boy.
I'm being
Oh, my
grammar police, but I'm not. It
No,
actually
not at
just
all. I
makes
love
sense.
that.
Okay. Okay, and
I
this is
love
gonna
grammar
be
police.
like, seem like I'm so this is the second phrase after
No,
the
not at all. I love that.
semicolon.
Okay.
It says
I love
facilitates
grammar
and
police.
monitors activities related to physical, social, occupational, vocational, and health. It says facilitates
Programs.
and monitors activities related to physical, social, occupational, vocational, and health.
You agree, Kara? Programs
I
should not
agree.
be struck out.
I agree.
Thank you. Okay. You agree, Kara? Programs should not be struck out.
So those were my only
Thank
2
you.
comments.
Thank you very much.
Yes, yes.
Are there any other questions from any of the other commissioners?
Thank you very much.
Yes, yes.
Are
None,
there any other
none from me.
questions from any of the other commissioners?
So my understanding is we can entertain a motion to
None
approve
from me.
as edited.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
So you have the first edit to perform the components of an intake, and then in number 8, change programs. So you have the first edit to perform the components of an intake, and then in number 8,
So does
change
one of you want to move
programs.
for that?
To perform the components of an intake, and then in number 8,
So does
change.
one of
Yeah,
you want
I'll
to
make the
move
motion
for
to
that?
approve the classic project.
Okay. And all in favor say aye.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to
Aye.
approve
Aye.
the classic project.
Opposed, no, so all in favor say aye.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to
Aye.
approve
Aye.
Thank you.
the classic project.
Moving on to our next classification project, 21-012 for the Sheriff's Office related to our work program specialist. 21
Everyone green,
012
so
for
you're
the
good to
sheriff's
go. All
office
right, good
related to
evening.
our
My name
work
is Lisa
program
Newby. I'm the
specialist.
personnel analyst for San Joaquin County
21
Human Resources.
green,
And
so
on
you're
behalf of
good to
the
go.
Director of
Good
Human
evening. My
Resources,
work
I'm here to
program
provide a brief
specialist.
overview of the classification project CP 21-012, which proposes amendments to the Work Program Specialist 1 and Work Program Specialist 2 specifications. In August of 2019, the Sheriff's Office requested an amendment of the qualification pattern for the Work Program Specialist 1 classification to include experience in a correctional setting. The department felt that this would help broaden the pool of qualified candidates and would also allow correctional staff that are not able to continue performing duties as a correctional officer the ability to qualify. While reviewing the Work Program Specialist 1 classification, a review was also conducted of the Work Program Specialist 2 classification to ensure there was consistency in the requirements for both classifications in this series. In addition to minor amendments to both job specifications, including adding language for ADA compliance and including physical and mental requirements for the Work Program Specialist 2, both classifications have added minimum qualifications that allow for experience in a correctional setting. The Sheriff's Office was presented with the draft job specification and supports Human Resources recommendations. SEIU was notified of our intent to present this study at tonight's meeting, excuse me, as well as provided copies of the specifications and did not respond with any objections or concerns. At this time, Human Resources is requesting the Commission to approve adoption of the amended Work Program Specialist 1 and Work Program Specialist 2 classifications. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and the Correctional Assistant Sheriff Michael Tabone is also here to answer any questions for the department you may have.
Okay, thank you. I have no questions on this. Do you?
No, I think you did an excellent job. Good.
Okay, thank you.
I have no
I have no
questions.
questions on this. Do you?
Yeah, I don't have either.
No, I think you did an excellent job. And I'll move that we approve it
Thank
as
you. I
presented.
have no questions on this. Do you?
Yeah, I don't have either. I'll second.
Okay. And all those in favor, say aye.
I, yeah,
Aye.
I
Aye.
don't have either.
And
I'll second.
passed.
Thank you,
And
Lisa.
all those in favor, say
We're moving
aye.
on to our
I,
fourth classification
I don't
project
have.
for this evening,
I'll second.
21-018, the Information Systems
I,
Division, and this covers the Information Systems Analyst classification series, including the confidential series. From Nicole.
Hello, good evening. My name is Nicole Demonsenzi, and I'm also a personal analyst with San Joaquin County Human Resources. On behalf of the Human Resources Director, I am here to provide a brief overview of Classification Project CP 21-018, which requests the CSC approves amendments to the Information Systems Analyst series. In March of 2019, the Information Systems Division requested a classification specification amendment to the Information System Analyst series. The department requested the addition of supervisory responsibilities. ISD felt that these specification amendments would allow for better efficiency with team oversight during off-site IT projects. There is currently a Department Information Systems Analyst series, which does already include supervision duties, beginning at the 3 level. The Department ISAs, as well as the ISAs in Central ISD, already have the same salary and will now both have the same language regarding supervisory duties. In addition to replicating the supervisory language into the ISA 3 through 5, a minor amendment to the typical duties section of the ISA 5 security officer was also made. This outlines the security officer's role on the countywide information security committee. ISD was presented with the draft job specifications and supports HR recommendations. SEIU was also notified of our intent to present this study at tonight's meeting, as well as provided copies of the specifications and had no objections. At this time, Human Resources is requesting the Commission approve adoption of the amended Information Systems Analyst 3, 4, 5, and ISA 5 Security Officer classifications. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and I also have the Information Services Director available if you have any questions as well. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and I
Are
also
there
have
any
the
questions from the
Information Services
commissioners?
Director available if you have any questions as well.
There is from me. So the the first few I followed no problem. I got mixed up when it came to the information systems analyst, the ISAs, 5, the confidential and the security officer, mainly with the language. If you look at the duty statement for information systems analyst 5 confidential, if you look at the duty statement for information systems analyst 5 confidential, I have the advantage of having already tagged it.
Yeah.
Duty statement for information systems analyst 5
Okay.
confidential. So under class characteristics and the second paragraph where it talks about how this is distinguished from the systems 4 analyst class, but it doesn't say how it's distinguished from the information systems analyst but it doesn't 5 or the security officer. And I thought, well, maybe that's clear to anyone who's actually trying to apply for one of these jobs, but to me, that distinguishing part needed to be in there. Although I'm willing to listen to why it doesn't need to be in there.
Distinguishing it from the security officers?
Yes, the security officer, the confidential, and then the plain ISA 5. The same language seems to be used. The confidential, and then the
well, the security
plain
officer is a
ISA
single
5.
allocated classification, whereas the 5
seems to be used.
can be allocated. There's multiple allocations of that classification, and it can be used differently within the department. So I think that may be one thing that distinguishes it. In terms of duties, it is a separate classification in terms of it's called the security officer classification, whereas these are not. They're just information systems analyst 5s. I don't know if that helps at all, or
Maybe. I think we're moving there. So we've been looking at these enough, so I know that there's always that paragraph that in any sequence, it says, this is different from the one above, and this is different from the one below. So maybe that's that there really doesn't need to be a distinction between the various analyst 5s. It just seemed like there should be, but maybe it doesn't because it's lateral, maybe is the reason why not.
yeah, and I see where the confusion can come in because as we move up the series, it's typically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the security officer is really, in my mind, when I think of it as the analyst, it's separate. It's its own sort of classification, even though it has the same name, same duties, it's in the same department. As a security officer, they have a very specific role as a security officer, whereas the 5s in general in main information systems division may have different roles, but they're all not necessarily interchangeable. Well, yeah, they could be interchangeable. Information systems division may have different roles, but not all. Yeah, and
I think we're getting some assistance here.
Jennifer Goodman, Principal
I
Personnel
think
Analyst. I think the one thing that I would note specifically about the confidential, that is, it's a different bargaining unit. I think the one thing that I would note the 1 through 5 non-confidential are represented by SEIU. The 5 confidential is an unrepresented position. Those are specifically assigned to the assignments that require a high level of confidentiality, such as our people who manage our payroll IT systems and our email systems. And so those are not represented by the union. Those are unrepresented positions. So I think the fact that there's not a clarification about that is a result of the fact that they're both part of the series. It's just a different representation unit. And we note we need to have a separate job code number so that the benefits can be paid appropriately. So there are different benefit structures. And then the representation is kind of goes along with that. And so really the classification itself is the same. The difference is the representation. And so we have a separate job spec that notes the confidential nature, and it has a separate job code and different benefit structure. And so it really is the same class. It's just that the representation is slightly different.
Okay, so I think we're getting closer to where I was not clear. So for example, there's no such thing as an ISA 4 confidential?
Correct.
Okay, so there's no reason to say why you distinguish the ISA 4 from the ISA 5 because it doesn't exist.
Right.
Okay, and is that true for I forgot the other one named, security officer?
So the security officer is not confidential. That one, as Nicole was stating, it's really a separate allocation. It's not part of the series. And because it's separate, it is possible we could add language about the distinction that the security officer is a specifically focused position, and there's only one security officer in the county. They have a very distinct and separate role. And so the need to distinguish the differences is probably less seen as necessary, because it's a single position, it's a single focus, and it's distinct and different.
Okay, it sounds to me like I am the only one unclear, and it's probably not going to trouble anybody because you've explained it very well. So I'm satisfied, thank you, with what you've explained. Not going to trouble anybody because you've explained it very well.
Are there any other questions from our commissioners?
Thank you.
None.
Trouble anybody because
No, I have none.
Are there any
Okay,
other
then should we
questions
move
from our
forward on this?
commissioners?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve the amendment.
No, I have none. I'll second it.
Okay, should we move
The
forward on this?
amendments as presented.
As
Yeah, I'll
presented,
make the
thank
motion
you.
to
All in
approve.
favor, say
Amendment.
aye.
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 Aye. I'll second it.
Okay, and no opposed, so
Amendments as presented.
as
Yeah,
presented.
I'll make the
Thank
motion
you.
to
Thank you. I
approve.
didn't mean to grill you.
Aye.
It was a good discussion, thank you. Okay, we're moving on to our
Thank you. I didn't mean to
final
grill you.
classification project for this evening, 21-020, Department of Child Support Services, and it's amending the class specification for civil process server. Welcome, Joanne. And it's amending the class specification for
Good
civil
evening, I'm
process
Joanne
server.
Ripp. I'm one of the personnel
Welcome,
analysts
Joanne.
with Human Resources.
And it's amending the class
I'm here to provide an
specification for
overview of the classification project 21-020. This is the civil process server. In fiscal year 21-22, Child Support Services added civil process server allocations to their budget. Until recently, civil process server was used solely by the sheriff's office, and the language in the job specification reflected this. With more than one department now using the classification, Child Support requested to have language referring to the sheriff's department removed from the job specification. This also provided us an opportunity to review the classification language for other edits. The single reference to the sheriff's office that limits use of the classification has been deleted. Other proposed changes include clarifying the activities of the job in class characteristics. Duty statements are rearranged and grouped based on type of work performed, and language is updated to reflect modern processes, such as those related to record keeping being done on an automated system. Minimum requirements are reorganized and amended to reinforce the need for knowledge of computer application skills and other expectations of position incumbents relating to the nature of the work. Additionally, standard language identifying organizational compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act and consideration of reasonable accommodation was added. As is standard procedure, the amendment recommendations were provided to the department heads for both the Sheriff's Office and Child Support Services, and to the appropriate union, in this case SEIU, Local 1021, and all were given an opportunity to provide feedback prior to placing on tonight's agenda. No concerns were raised by any of the parties. It's recommended that the commission approve and adopt the proposed amendments to the civil process server classification. I'm happy to answer any questions as well. Remotely, I have Veronica Riley with us. She's the Assistant Director of Child Support Services, and she's available.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions on this one?
I just want to make a comment that I think it's very appropriate that you make the
Okay, thank
change
you. Does
because
anyone have any questions on this one?
this is, a different job really, isn't it? Very appropriate that you make the change where there's, it's not working for the sheriff anymore, correct?
Right, it could be in either one of those departments or any other department that adds that allocation if needed.
Now, on number 8, typical duties, what is a keeper? May act as a keeper.
Someone responsible for something.
What is a keeper?
So these individuals are going out into the field, locating persons and serving documents. So they're entrusted with these important sensitive documents.
So they can hang on to those.
entrusted with
Documents.
these important sensitive documents.
Any other further questions?
Documents.
Looks like none.
No, I'll move that we adopt the
Any other
proposed
further
amendment
questions?
to
Okay,
the civil process server classification.
looks like none.
No, I'll
I'll
move that we
second.
adopt the
Any other
proposed
further
amendment
questions? All
to the
those
civil
in favor say
process
aye.
server classification.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
No,
I'll
the
second.
Thank
motion
you.
passed. Thank you.
Civil
In favor say
process
aye.
server classification.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Moving
I'll
on to
second.
subsection B,
Motion
the
passed.
adoption
Thank
of
you.
class
In favor say
specifications.
aye.
We have one
Aye.
new class
Aye.
specification to propose to the
No.
commission tonight.
Motion passed.
It's number 21-022 related to San Joaquin County Clinics, and it's for patient access services manager. Related to San Joaquin
Good evening,
County
Chair
Clinics,
Lundstrom and
and
members
it's
of
for
the Commission. On
patient
behalf of the
access
San Joaquin
services
County Human
manager.
Resources, I'm Principal Personnel Analyst Michael Lee.
Good
The item before you requests that the Commission adopt HR's recommendation to establish a new classification of Patient Access Services Manager, San Joaquin County Clinics. The San Joaquin County Clinics recently separated from the San Joaquin General Hospital, otherwise known as SJGH, and have now become their own county department. During the creation of this new department, the Board of Supervisors also approved several new allocations for the clinic for operational purposes. An existing classification for one position, the Manager of Admission and Utilization Review, was identified as insufficient to meet the needs of the Frederick Qualified Health Center, also the clinics, and had been written with specific reference to use within the hospital and acute care versus a clinic environment. Therefore, Human Resources worked with the department and reviewed comparable classifications in other county clinics to develop this new Patient Access Services Manager, San Joaquin County Clinic classification. This classification has overall management of responsibility for patient access services, operations, and revenue cycle for San Joaquin County Clinic. There are currently 3 clinics located at the San Joaquin General Hospital and 3 on California Street in Stockton. In 2020, approximately 115,000 patient appointments were made. An additional 30 to 40,000 COVID-related interactions took place. To support the patient accounts generated by this volume of services provided, Patient Access Services Manager will oversee a division that includes an office supervisor and 14 patient registration clerks. Ahead of placing this item on the agenda, the class specifications were provided to the department head, Dr. Perdue, and the appropriate union, SJCMA, and were given an opportunity to provide feedback prior to placing this project on tonight's agenda. They had no concerns. Following your approval, HR will begin to meet and confer process with SJCMA to confirm bargaining unit designation and set salary. That concludes my overview of this classification. I'm here to answer any of your questions, as well as Dr. Perdue, the CEO of the clinics, is online. That concludes my overview of this classification. I'm here to answer any of your questions.
I myself have no questions. Mr. Gutierrez?
No, I don't have any question. I think you did a good job. Thank you. Very good
I
job.
myself
Yeah,
have no
again, I
questions.
don't
Mr.
have any.
Gutierrez? Sure, you're very excited to move forward on this. Do we have a motion to approve, to adopt and approve? Sure, you're very excited to
Yeah,
move forward on this.
I'll move the
Do we
motion
have a
to
motion
adopt the
approve, to adopt and
classification project
Sure, you're very excited.
21022. As
Okay,
per.
thank you.
I'll
I'll
second
move the motion to
Okay,
adopt
and
the
all those in favor, aye.
classification project
Aye.
Aye.
21022.
And oppose?
As per.
And the motion
second.
passed.
I'll move the motion to
Congratulations.
adopt
And
the
all those in favor, aye.
classification project
Aye.
Aye.
21022.
And oppose?
As per.
And
Thank
the
you.
motion passed.
We're moving on to
Congratulations.
subsection
All those
C,
in favor,
classification
aye.
studies. We
Aye.
have
Aye.
3 classification studies for the commission to review tonight. The first one is classification project 20-008 for the Stockton Metropolitan Airport. The current position is an accountant 2, and our recommendation is that it becomes an accountant 3. The current position is an accountant 2.
Chair, Commissioners, thank you again, Amy Brummer, Classification Analyst. This was an incumbent study generated from an April 2020 request from the airport director to study the accountant 2 in the department and determine whether this position was appropriately classified at the journey level due to recent duties changes and staffing. The study was conducted in accordance with standard position analysis practice. Human Resources found that the duties performed by the incumbent are more closely described by the advanced journey level accountant 3 class. The primary factors contributing to this determination include the complexity of work and level of responsibility. The position also began supervising one clerical staff person over about a year ago. Regarding complexity of work, the position performs the most complex professional and technical accounting duties required of the department. Lending to this complexity are the accounting of an enterprise fund, various grants, and capital improvement projects. In regard to level of responsibility, the incumbent serves as the only dedicated fiscal support for the department and is relied upon by the department director to provide the highest quality of accounting work and level of independence. There are no other journey level accountant positions in the county without higher level intra-departmental fiscal guidance. Therefore, Human Resources is recommending that the Civil Service Commission reclassify the position from Accountant 2 to Accountant 3. The study report, pertinent classifications, and the department organizational chart are also included with your agenda item packet. Study results were provided to the department head, position incumbent, and the appropriate union, which is also SEIU, and all concurred with the recommendation. That concludes my overview of the study. I'm available to answer questions, and Airport Director Russell Stark is available remotely as well. I'm available to answer questions,
I found
and
this one
Airport Director
particularly
Russell
compelling.
Stark
I'll just
is
tell you
available
that
remotely
right
as well.
away, and it was very well laid out. So I have no questions or concerns.
Looks like the airport's doing well.
And it was very well laid out. So I have no questions or concerns.
No, I have no, looks like the airport's doing well.
That was a good comment. There were significant changes to the amount of budget that have taken place in recent years. So compounding it quite significantly. Significant changes to the amount of budget that have taken
Okay, if
place
there are
in
no
recent
further
years.
questions,
So compounding
motion
it
to adopt and approve.
significant changes to the amount of budget that have taken
Okay, if
place
there are
in
no
recent
further
I'll move that we
questions,
adopt and approve it,
motion to adopt and
as
approve.
presented.
I'll second.
And all those in favor say aye.
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 No opposed,
I'll second.
unanimous, carried. And all those in favor say aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
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 Our second classification
I'll
project
second.
tonight, it's at 21-015, is for the Public Works Department, and it's a request to reclassify one position of data technician to senior office assistant, and also recommend that the Board of Supervisors authorize the position incumbent to be Y-rated. And Amy will cover this and will answer any questions you may have.
Thank you again. In September 2019, Public Works asked Human Resources to reclassify an employee in the Administrative Services Division of the department. This employee had been performing duties unrelated to the current classification assignment for approximately 20 years. This item proposes the Commission take two actions. First, reclassify the position, and second, to recommend to the San Joaquin County Board of Supervisors to Y-rate the study incumbent. We'll get a little further into that explanation, and you also have a bit of that included in your agenda item if you're not familiar with the Y rate of employees. Upon review of the study request, Human Resources concurred that the classification was not appropriate and that a different classification should be identified. The assigned class, Data Technician 2, was written when computers and peripheral equipment required significantly more manual intervention to operate and focused on duties such as maintaining magnetic tape file libraries, observing computer consoles for status indicator lights, and all sorts of duties of the like. It was actually quite a throwback to read some of this. We don't use this classification anywhere else in the county. So over time, it morphed into performing duties that became, when the systems became more automated, the duties performed were more of a clerical nature, mostly through reconciling manual entry time cards into the payroll system, and providing other office support. And those are the nature of the duties that have been performed for the bulk of the time the incumbent has been in the class. This is typical work provided by the senior office assistant in the class. The full text that we have regarding the Y rate is at the bottom of page 2 in your study analysis. So we're going to recommend that we reclassify from data technician to data technician 2 to senior office assistant. However, the salary, base salaries are higher and lower respectively. So the incumbent is paid at this level. We are asking you to approve the reclassification and also approve that the incumbent remain at their current base rate of pay, which is the data technician 2. Again, this one includes the full study report, pertinent classifications, and department organizational chart for your reference. We also provided the results of this study to the department head, incumbent, union, SEIU, and all concurred with the recommendation. That's my overview, and Christy Rea is also available remotely. She is the Public Works Business Administrator. Should you have questions for the department?
I do have one question. So in the part you were just referencing under study analysis, towards the end where it says, I think it's the last sentence, that the incumbent would receive her current rate of pay until she either terminates or until the salary for senior office assistant catches up with their current pay rate. So I'm just curious how how cost of living works with that. So would she be denied cost of living adjustments and just stay static until eventually it catches up? Is that the plan?
Correct. There wouldn't be any cost of living allowance adjustments unless senior office assistant happened to receive a COLA that would then exceed what the data technician 2, it's no longer going to be data technician 2, so the COLA wouldn't be applied to that particular class any longer. It's the individual now, so we're transitioning in the Y rate scenario, transitioning to the employee being tied to a particular classification, just simply to that base rate that they were being paid at the time of reclassification. Just simply to that, so nothing changes with that employee until it's exceeded until the class that the appropriate class exceeds with that employee until it's that rate.
So we're essentially acknowledging that the employee's working at a senior office assistant classification level, but receiving a higher level of pay. So that pay remains static until those two match.
Okay. Which is in the interest of being fair is what the idea is.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we don't want to harm the incumbent.
In the interest of Okay, okay. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
No, I don't.
No, I don't.
Okay, so this is going to be a two-part motion. The one to approve and adopt,
No,
and
I
then the
don't.
second part is going to be to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that we do the Y rate. The one to approve and adopt,
No,
and
I
then the
don't.
second part is going to be to recommend. I'm just going to go ahead and so move that we do that.
Sure.
You want to
I'll second.
second? All in favor? Going to go ahead and so
Aye.
move that we do that.
Sure.
Opposed, so
I'll second.
second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Moving on to our last
Aye.
classification project for the evening, number 20-016. This is for our UC Cooperative Extension Department, and it's a request for the commission to consider reclassifying one position of junior administrative assistant to administrative assistant. Welcome, Rachel. To consider reclassifying one position of junior administrative
Evening,
assistant
Commissioners. I'm your
to
last class study tonight. So my name is Rachel Novetsky. I'm Principal Personnel Analyst with Human Resources, and I'll be presenting this study tonight. I'm here to just provide a brief overview of classification Classification Project 20-016. This was an incumbent study conducted on the current junior administrative assistant position in the Cooperative Extension Department. The director of the Co-op Extension asked for Human Resources to determine whether the position was appropriately classified since first being added to their budget in 2013. Asked for Human Resources to determine whether the position was appropriately classified since first being added to their budget in 2013. Asked for Human Resources to determine whether the position was appropriately classified since first being added to their budget in 2013. Asked for Human Resources to determine whether the position was appropriately classified since first being added to their budget in 2013. Asked for Human Resources to determine whether the position was appropriately classified since first being added to their budget in 2013. Incumbent works with significant independence, and the duties have expanded to not only provide direct administrative and budgetary support to the director, but also to the UC management staff, which is why in your packet, the organizational chart showed both the county and the UC staff that are currently under the co-op extension. Based on the information obtained and gathered during the study, Human Resources found that these duties performed by the incumbent are considered within the journey level of the admin assistant series, most specifically the admin assistant 1 classification. Therefore, HR is recommending that the Civil Service Commission reclassify this position to administrative assistant 1. As a standard procedure, we have reviewed our recommendations with the department head, the incumbent, and the union, which in this case is SEIU 1021, and none had objections to the recommendations that were going to be presented today. This concludes my general overview. I do apologize. The incumbent was unable to join tonight, and the director, Brent Holtz, also intended to join, but he is in his own board meeting at the moment. So I don't see him on the Teams meeting, so I'm going to assume he was occupied and could not make it, but I can answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. This was another one that I found compelling and the argument laid out very well. So for myself, I have no questions.
Commissioner Gutierrez has no questions either. Good job.
Same, I don't have any questions either.
Okay, so we want to move forward with the motion. Your turn.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve the reclassification of 20016.
I'll second the motion.
Great. All those in favor say aye.
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 And motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you. We do not have any staff reports for the commissioners this evening. And under subsection E, request for appeal hearings for Rule 3 classification, Rule 18 dismissal, suspension, demotion, or reduction of pay, or Rule 19, we do not have any requests for appeal. We do not have any other requests for the commission tonight. We do have a request for the commission to set a date of an appeal hearing. This is a 3 incumbent study for who have submitted a classification appeal for senior office assistant from Behavioral Health Services. And all we're doing tonight is requesting that the commission set which commission meeting the appeal should be presented. Our next meeting is November 10th for your consideration. The meeting after that is December 8th, both 2021 for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. I know I will be here November 10th. What about the two of you?
I will be here.
On November 10th?
Yes.
November.
Yeah, as of now, no plan. So most
Okay.
likely will be there.
Since we don't have our 4th commissioner then to ask, there's a good chance he'll be here, but we have our 3 we committed to. So I think we can move forward with a November 10th date to listen to the appeal.
Is that good for the staff as well?
Yes, that's
And
good for
the-
staff. Thank you for asking. So I think we need a motion.
Do we need a motion on this? Okay, all right. So
Yeah, I'll move that we set
Okay.
it for November 10th.
Okay.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.
Yes.
We're now moving on to public comments. Donna, do we have any public comment this evening?
We do not have any public comment.
Okay. Our next future meeting date, so our next meeting date is set for November 10th, 2021, here in the Administration Building at 44 North San Joaquin Street, room 146. I mentioned a minute ago, our next additional commission meeting date for 2021 is December 8th of 2021. We do not have any appeal hearings for the consideration of the commission this evening, which means we're moving on to closed session. As noted on the agenda, there are 2 closed session items this evening. Closed session item number A has been pulled due to an emergency, so the commissioners tonight will be hearing closed session item number B under California Government Code Section 54957, consideration of a fitness for duty for healthcare services, Office of the Medical Examiner. There will not be a report out on this, so we will move to closed session. If our commissioners can just sit tight, we'll take a few minutes to flip us into closed session mode.
Okay, great.
So should I go ahead and join another link, Jana?
I'm not sure yet, hold on. He's a commissioner. Okay. And go to closed session. Okay, yeah, Commissioner Wanderer, can you exit out and go to closed session?
Sure.
Thank you. are we live?
We have returned from closed session. We have nothing to report. This concludes the meeting of the Civil Service Commission. We are adjourned.
Okay, everyone, I will drop. Have a good night.
Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, a little bit. Okay, thank you.